After the delete cart item, now the reducer has two types of operations, as you can see in this code. In this lecture, we will add another one. We will add a login component. The output will look like this. You see that there is a login component which has few items in a drop-down. Every component is now updated with the user information. So if I select admin here, I want that all the component headers should have user information, like the purchase component, cart and total component should have the selected user information. That's the kind of work we are going to do now. And with the help of this example, we will also implement the combined reducers concept. This component I am adding to create a scenario where you have various actions in an application, and whatever we have seen so far, we put all at the same place, that is in the same reducer. But that is practically impossible to have all the actions in a single file in this single reducer function. So generally we divide reducers into more logical pieces. So the login component actions we will later on configure in a separate reducer. But at the moment we'll keep it in the same reducer, we'll proceed further, then gradually we'll change the code in the next lecture. In this lecture, we implement this login component with the same reducer. So let's begin. First of all, I'll go to store.js. Now I want to have list of users, so I'll add users and I'm giving few fixed values here. I'm also adding one more login detail. This state will have the current login, the selected login information. At the moment I just say none. Now let's create the login component. So here in the components folder, I'll add a file, say login.js. I will use the use selector and use dispatch because it will be needed. Creating the login component. Now we already have the users list in the array which we have defined in the store.js. So we want that, so I'll say const users is equal to use selector, and we just take the users out of the state object. And let me return the JSX. I'll say division, the custom division which we already defined. Let me have the title, the login component, the HR, and I'm going to have the drop down. I'll say select, and we have the users now. So I'll say users.map, and we'll use the user and index. And inside this, I'm going to return the option, and in the option, we'll have individual user. Let me just export the login component. So the component is ready now. Now let me go to app.js. So I'm going to import the login component, and the same component I'm going to write here. So I'll say login. Now let me just save this and let's check the output. So now you see that the login component is getting displayed. If I click here, we have the items filled. So the global state is now referred in the login component as well. But as you can see that if I click here, the user information doesn't change. And that's what we have to do. So first of all, let me update all the components. So let me go to purchase component, and here I'll say const login detail, use selector. I'll say state.login detail. And let me also change this h3. I'll say a dash user, and I will display the login det, that is login detail. The same thing we apply to cart.js and also to the total.js. Now let's save this and check the output. So you see that we have the filled list, but if I click, nothing is happening with the user details because it is the constant value. It is the initial value we assigned, that is none. So the next step is on selection of the user. We need to update the user field beside every component header. So for that, the very first thing is here in the login component, we need to have on change, and we'll define a login handler. So here I say login handler, and there will be an event object we pass. Let me first of all create the dispatch object, and then I define the login handler, and we transfer the selected value text to the login detail. So I'll say dot text, and we are going to dispatch this with the type action login, and login detail we are going to pass with the same payload name. Now this dispatch will pass the object to reducer. So let me go to store.js, and here we define a new action type saying if action type is equal to login, then we return the original state and the login detail will be updated with action.login detail. Now let me just save this and let's check the output. Now you see that if I click manager, it updates the user information in all the component. Let me select few products from this purchase component, banana, grapes. Again, I change the end user and admin. So it's working absolutely fine. It's updating all the components with the selected user information. Now in the next lecture, we will create separate reducers, and then we will merge with the help of combine reducers method.